Hey guys, it's Will from EDM Tips. So today I want to show you 5 different classic lead sounds that you'll definitely recognize from some of the biggest EDM tracks of all time, and I'm going to show you exactly how to create them from scratch, step by step. As usual, you can download this project file, all the presets completely free. But before you do that, smash like so YouTube shows my video to more people, and subscribe to my channel if you want tips and tricks on electronic music production each and every week. So these are the 5 essential leads we'll be creating today. The first is the iconic lead pluck from Insomnia by Faithless. The second are those heavenly intro chords from Born Slippy by Underworld. The third, we have the iconic piano riff from Avicii's Levels. R.I.P. Tim, we miss you, brother. Number 4 is the epic saw lead from Above and Beyond's Sun and Moon. And number 5 is that gnarly distorted synth lead from Tiesto's remix of Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using Serum from Extra Records because it's one of the most popular synths out there. It's really easy to see the routing, but you can do this in pretty much any synth in any DAW. So if you don't have Serum, it's fine, just follow along in whichever synth you have. 5 absolutely classic tracks, so without further ado guys, let's hop into the DAW and get it done. Now the beauty of this is, most sounds that you hear and you want to recreate aren't actually as complex as you might first think. That's exactly why I'm going to show you every step of the process, and there's usually only 3 or 4 steps to get pretty close to the sound that you want. Okay, so the first lead that we are going to cover is the iconic pluck riff from Insomnia by Faithless. So if we open up the MIDI, we can see I've already programmed this in, and you can hear what it sounds like at the moment. So this is what we're going to be creating from scratch. And you can see these notes here have a lower velocity, and that's going to become very apparent as to why that is. I've just grabbed them and dragged down the velocity control here. So let's open up a fresh initialized patch and create that sound from scratch. Now the first thing you want to do is work out the ADSR controls. And I know that sounds a bit complex if you haven't heard of it before, but it basically means the shape of the amplitude of the sound. So how short it is, how sustained it is, and we start off having it with 100% sustain when you open up Serum. So let's listen to it at the moment. So first, let's get that sounding a bit pluckier, which is the kind of effect that we want. So let's take down, we'll leave the sustain up, actually. Add a little bit of release, not much, because it's quite a short, sharp sound. Great, okay, now let's choose a different wave shape in the oscillator. So I'll choose basic shapes. Then I will look for a square wave, I think. And what I'm going to do now is add some unison. So that's doubling up this wave, and we can detune it. It's going to make it a bit of a thicker, wider sound. Always making sure that we're not clipping here. Make sure that we don't get run into the red, basically. Let's turn on the second oscillator and get basic shapes. And then we're going to choose a pulse wave. Again, increase the unison. Make it thicker. And now we're going to add a filter, and what this is going to do is allow us to give it a plucky sound, an even pluckier sound. So we'll select envelope 2, and this is what we're going to assign to our filter. So we can drag that over onto the cutoff, bring the cutoff right down, or quite a lot down, and this little control here will affect how much of that envelope is affecting the filter. And now we need to change the shape of this envelope to make it more plucky. So let's take the sustain right down and then make the decay really short and sharp. So you can hear we're kind of getting there now. Let's open up the filter a bit. Add some drive to fatten it up a bit. And we're going to add a sub oscillator as well, and let's have a listen. I think we're going to add a pulse wave on the sub oscillator as well, and we're going to assign this to the filter as well. So we'll just click there. So we've got quite a nice rich sound now. So let's move on to the effects section. And I wanted to do the effects within Serum themselves, so you can download the presets and they're all in there. So let's first add a bit of delay. And that's just giving it a bit more of that feel, and now a bit of reverb, and I'm going to reorder these. So the compressor is going to be last in the chain. So the delay and the reverb are going to get compressed together with that dry signal. Bit less delay. Maybe ping pong delay, so it goes left and right. Bit of compression to really push that sound, but not quite that much. And the very last thing I need to do for this Insomnia pluck lead is to show you what I did with the velocity. So you remember that some of these notes were lower in velocity. What we're going to do is assign the velocity in Serum to the levels. And this is going to mean that the lower the velocity, the quieter the note. So we can assign it to the level of oscillator B, and also of oscillator A, and we're going to assign it to the volume of the sub oscillator as well, and then tweak it. And it means these notes here are just being played slightly quieter. And again, you can download the one that I spent a bit more time on, but that's how that pluck is made. If you're enjoying this, this is the kind of detail we go into every single week on the live sessions, except you get to ask the questions during the EDM Tips Masterclass. So if you do want to get to a professional level as quickly as possible with one-on-one and mentorship, check out the link below this video. Let's continue. Next, we are going to go on to Born Slippy by Underworld, and this again is an absolutely iconic track. I'm going to change the tempo to 140 for this one. Let's duplicate that because that's already done. And now let's listen to what we're going to end up with. Yes, reach for the lasers. So that's the sound we're going for, and that's what we're going to create in Serum from scratch again. So let's open up a completely blank initialized patch and start work. So this is the sound we've got by default. Obviously way off the mark, but how many steps are actually needed to get the sound we want? Well, actually not that many. So we're going to leave the amplitude as it is, maybe add a little bit of release, but because these are sustained chords anyway, it's fine. All of the pluck comes from the actual filter envelope. So that's a clue of where we should go first. So let's drag envelope 2 onto the filter cutoff again, turn on that, make sure that we've got everything routed to it. So both oscillators, the sub oscillator and the noise oscillator, and then create this shape that we want to create the pluck from the track. So you can hear it's still sustained. And we don't actually need to tweak the release. Okay, so let's make that rich, thick sound that we all know and love. Let's add some unison again. Add a second oscillator. Again, both saw waves. Detune that slightly. Add a bit more unison. We're going to add a sub oscillator as well, just to add some low end. And we're going to add this envelope to that level here. So it starts off louder and the sub oscillator gets quiet with the pluck. A bit of white noise. Just to add a little bit more texture, and again that's being sent to this filter as well. So now let's add the effects, because we're not a million miles away. First thing we're going to do is add a little bit of chorus and make it thicker. Let's turn the white noise down a bit. Very close already. Next we are going to add some reverb. Actually, we'll add some delay next. So getting the correct delay time is very important. Now on this track it's a dotted eighth. So I'm going to choose an 1/8 like this, make sure it's dotted. Same for the right channel. And then make sure that the feedback is set correctly as well to what you want. Add some reverb. Maybe swap them around in order. And there you have it. Bob's your uncle, as they say. So this is the version I did with a bit more care. So let's have a listen to that. Yeah, pretty much the same. Once again, download it. Fantastic. Now we are on to the iconic piano riff in Levels by Avicii. So this is what we are going to be creating. And this is a little bit more complex. We're actually going to do some processing after the Serum itself, because sometimes that's just needed. We need layers and we need some effects. So this is what we're going to be making. So let's create a blank patch from scratch, and I'll show you all this routing as well. So here we've got a lead synth and we've got the piano chords. Now the piano chords are very simple. I'm not going to show you really how to make them because it's all about just the programming. So you can see I've programmed in the right chords. Then I've just thrown a standard piano on and made sure that it's played as loudly as possible. So let's create the lead from scratch. Again, I'm going to use just a blank Serum patch, and let's just create this kind of funny, almost childlike sounding synth that goes over the top for the lead. That's where we're starting. Doesn't sound great, so let's just quickly build it out. Let's turn oscillator 2, and what I'm going to do is choose another wave. Basic shapes, except this time I'm going to choose a square wave and I'm going to put it up an octave. So it's kind of got that fun childlike feel. Now we don't need to use the filter at all in this synth. So what we're going to do is just tweak the ADSR, make it a little bit more plucky, like so, with a shorter sustain, shorter decay. Bit of a release. Turn on the sub oscillator. And a bit of white noise as well, very important. Add some unison. And we're almost there now. The last thing we're going to do is add some LFO on the pitch, and we're going to modulate the pitch very slightly. So what you can do is drag the first LFO onto fine, which is fine pitch, so very short amounts of changing. That's obviously too much. Sounds a bit silly. So let's unpin that from the BPM, so it's an arbitrary hertz amount. And we're just going to turn down the amount that it's making it wobble. And that's pretty much it. Now it's all about the processing after the fact. So if you see what we've got here, we've got the lead with no processing, we've got the piano with no processing, but we've made them into a group and we're going to process them together. So the first thing we're going to do is compress them and make them sound a bit more punchy, have a bit more bite and attack to them. So that's before. And now we're going to add some OTT. If you don't use Ableton, you can download OTT for free from Steve Dudder's website, X for Records, but this does exactly the same thing in Ableton. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this OTT multiband compression. And that just brings out the high end. So of course we need to listen to this with the piano. I think I may have compressed it a bit too much because I didn't have the piano on, of course. pretty good actually. I forgot with the lead, we actually want to add a little bit of reverb as well. So let's go to Effect, add some reverb. And the last thing we want to add before we make the signal jump with a bouncing pump compressor is add this pitch drop. Now this isn't actually a particularly good one, so you can really hear when it kicks in, but I wanted to show you using the Ableton plugins as much as I could. So this is using one of the Max for Live plugins. It's called Pitch Bend or Pitch Drop, something like that. So you can hear when it comes in though. So whichever DAW you're using, there's usually some kind of pitch shifting where you can create a record stop sound. So that's what you need to do in this instance. And then we've got a pump compressor, which I'm feeding in a sidechain compressor from my sidechain channel. If you want to find out why I'm using a sidechain channel, you can watch the video that's just popped up now, but let's have a listen to it with this on. Lovely jubbly. If you're enjoying this video so far, let me know by liking it and then leaving a comment below. What do you want to see me cover on this channel? Is there another category of 5 things that you really want me to show? Music production, of course. Naughty. Okay, on to the next one. Next, we are working with Sun and Moon by Above and Beyond. Absolutely love this track and the epic breakdown, the big saw synth in the middle. And this is the sound that we're going to end up with. Yes. So let's open up a completely fresh initialized patch in Serum and get it done. So this is what we're starting out with. And actually, this one's pretty simple to do. There's just a lovely trick I want to show you at the end, which you won't have been expecting. So we're just going to tweak the ADSR controls a little bit. Not much, just so it dies off over a slightly longer period of time and doesn't cut out straight away. Now let's add some unison. This is just a standard saw wave. And now we're going to add some white noise. Just to add more high-end energy. And I'll tell you what, and that's pretty much done. I've done 2 extra things. One is to create a bass line underneath, and all that is in Serum is a simple sine wave. And the exact same shape for the ADSR controls, same controls for the sub. I put another sine wave 2 oscillators below, 2 octaves below, sorry, so it sounds like this. And a little bit of noise. And then together it's this. Now the last trick is to create that kind of sucking effect. And the way that we've done that is create an auxiliary channel, put a reverb on it, just a utility to bump up the gain, taken out the low end with an EQ, and then what I've done is compress that with a sidechain compressor from the dry signal of this synth. And this is what happens. So if we feed in some of the main chords to the auxiliary reverb, we get this effect. But the chords sound washed out now and they lose their power. So by putting a compressor at the end of the reverb chain, taking the audio from the dry signal, you can see what's going to happen now and hear. Listen carefully. So what's happening is that dry signal is ducking the reverb for the duration that the dry signal is playing, and then the reverb is being allowed to be heard when those dry signals end, and that creates that cool sucking kind of reverse effect. So with the bass line as well. Excellent stuff. Okay, on to the very last example of a killer essential lead that I want to show you. It's the Adagio for Strings remix by Tiesto. This is what we're going to end up with. This is in the break. Okay, so let's create that from scratch. You can see here there's actually a bit more going on in the processing, so let's crack on and get it done. So again, let's start with a completely initialized patch in Serum. This is actually very simple within Serum itself, and it's all to do with these plugins after Serum that's going to give it that character. So we can actually just leave it on the default saw wave to start with. And we want to give it a slightly more plucky feel because it's completely sustained at the moment. So let's just turn the sustain down, turn the decay down. And then everything else is to do with the effects. So we're going to effects here and we're going to add some hyper dimension, which is almost like a kind of chorus effect, just thickens it up a bit. Then we're going to add some distortion. We're going to choose diode 1 and we're going to push this really hard. Now, because of this, it's going to be sounding too loud. So what we're going to do is go back into the oscillator and turn down the level of this oscillator here. And just get the sweet spot. And now that's pretty much as far as we can go in Serum itself because we want to add some different character of distortion to it. I love this Ableton amp plugin, so let's turn this on and I've chosen lead and I'm just going to feed a little bit of it in. Let's make sure it doesn't get too loud. And it's just adding even more distortion to that sound. Now we are going to add some EQ, and all I've done is just taken out the low end so the bass doesn't build up too much. You can't barely hear the difference really. Let's close those two. Next we've got a reverb, and I've got a reverb and a delay, and it's all going to be compressed together as we showed in with the earlier examples, but within Serum itself. So let's add some reverb. Epic. Some delay. And I've set this to ping pong. I've set it to 1 on the left and 2 on the right. And that just allows it to bounce around in your ear holes. And then we've just got a compressor at the end to just bring it together slightly. Well, I've actually compressed this quite hard. So there you have it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it this week. I had a great time making these. Don't forget you can download the Serum presets below this video and the project file too. And yeah, if you like it, please share it with your friends, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Until next time, cheers and happy producing.